for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O's, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to an early edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. And another great night of playoff hockey, Pierre. And look, let's just get right to the highlight of the night. I mean, maybe not obviously the save of the playoffs so far because we're still early, but maybe the save of the year, maybe one of the best saves I've seen in my life covering hockey. Let's go right to this clip. Sergei Bobrovsky absolutely robs Matt Dumba.
Zone has a man trailing in, let a shot go wide off the end board, played up front, Stamkos back, and what a save, Bobrovsky! Bobrovsky with the trapper to deny Dumba, the defenseman who was open in front with a yawning cage. Sergei Bobrovsky displaying acrobatics to keep this game tied at 2.
I mean, wow, and great call there. Great call by the Panthers radio guys. Pierre, just your thoughts on that, and also being a coach when you've seen a save made like that by the opposition or by your team, how it can sway a game.
Well, the crowd in Florida appreciated that great save, Jimmy, as much as they would appreciate a goal scored by Sam Bennett or by Matthew Tkachuk or, Carter Verhaeghe. A great save's the equal to a really good goal. It really is, especially when you're on home ice. In terms of the coaching staff, they're obviously appreciative because it elevates your team as well. It probably deflates the visiting team a little bit because they're like, how's that not in the back of the net? But to me, that reminded me of Dominik Hasek. Reminded me of Dominik Hasek in Detroit. It reminded me of Dominik Hasek in Buffalo. I see that save and I'm going, I've seen Hasek do similar things, not exactly like that.
Yeah,
there were saves that Dominik made when he was in his prime where you were like, whoa, how did he do that? So that's what you asked me what I was thinking. I was thinking of Dominik Hasek when I saw that.
Yeah, that's a great call there. Man, the Dominator definitely had a few of those up his sleeve, Pierre. And you bring up Bennett, too. Gets hurt in that game, Pierre. Does not come back. I haven't seen any updates. I don't know if you have. I've been looking all morning. So nothing yet on that. So that's something to keep an eye on for the Panthers as they head to Tampa Bay up 2-0 in the series. Pierre, this series right now, it's been tight as we expected. They've been good games. They've been physical. They've been exciting. But the Panthers do have a 2-0 lead. Can Tampa Bay climb back into this series in their home barn?
Of course it can. I think the biggest thing it goes back to you're never in trouble until you lose on home ice. They haven't lost on home ice yet. Now they can't lose game 3. They lose game 3, they're not winning the series. And people say, how do you know that? They're not winning this series if they lose game 3. Now, you made a really good point, Jimmy. Sammy Bennett, I think, is probably hurt pretty significantly. The fact that he got hurt in the second period and we never saw him again in the third period or overtime, he never was on the bench. That tells me that's pretty significant. If it's a bone bruise or if it's, a pulled muscle, chances are they come back. This is probably more than that. And, when that shot hit him, you could tell he wasn't comfortable. He's a tough, I don't have to tell you. He's a tough guy. He's a really tough guy. Yeah. So it wasn't a little bruise. I mean, there's clearly an injury situation that they're dealing with him.
So Paul Maurice actually saying within the last hour, telling reporters, here it is, I'm looking at it on Twitter, better than we originally thought, but out for at least a week. And some people saying it may be more, but that is the word from Paul Maurice. At least.
So there you go. He's going to be out. He will miss game 3. He'll miss game 4, and a good chance he's going to miss game 5.
Right.
Okay? So he's out 3 games in the series.
Yep.
So that allows, that's a big loss. It's a pretty significant loss.
Because he's a pain in a derriere for anybody he plays. And he's a key type of playoff guy you want in the lineup there, like you were just saying. So, Pierre, going around, though, what other games jumped out to you that maybe surprised you or kind of went as you thought?
Congratulations to Colorado and Georgiev for having a huge bounce back. That kid deserves a lot of credit. He does.
A lot of fortitude.
Winnipeg's got some soul searching to do. They played better than what the score indicated. They just couldn't beat Georgiev, and Connor Hellebuyck wasn't good.
No.
People can say whatever they want. He hadn't been good in this series.
He hasn't been good in the playoffs, Pierre, as you've been saying. I mean, this is, getting to be kind of a trend. And he's a great goalie, don't get me wrong. But
we agree, but he won in the playoffs. So until he wins in the playoffs, we don't know what he can do in the playoffs. Yeah. But the turning point of that game, I thought, was the Zach Parise goal. Mm-hmm. And it's a turnover, regular play for a goalie. Just handle the puck, or don't handle the puck, but don't go out and play it if you can't handle it.
Yeah.
And he turns it over, and then Parise eventually scores on it. That's not a good hockey play. And that set Winnipeg back. I don't know how much of a tinkering job they'll do with their lineup, Winnipeg. I don't think they have to do much. Colorado's got to be feeling really good. They got out of there with a split, especially after giving up, a lot of goals in game 1.
Uh-huh.
And falling behind in game 2.
Yeah.
The Gustafsson goal. So all I can say is Colorado's got to be feeling good. The Ranger-Washington thing, I thought the Rangers were sloppy. They get out with a win. I thought they could have been better. Give Washington credit. They're still hanging around. But I thought Rangers were sloppy at key times in that game. But no, not much stood out. I mean, the go-to game was obviously the goalie battle down in Florida. That was really spectacular. Because, as much as we salute Bobrovsky, Jimmy,
Vasilevsky was awesome.
Vasilevsky was really good. He was really good.
He was. Before I want to get back to that Rangers game in a second, but just back on Colorado there too, Pierre. Yeah, I like what you're saying there about Georgiev. I mean, we're going to tell it like it is, right? But when a guy turns it around and he bounces back, I'm glad you said those words. He deserves a lot of credit. I mean, this guy was in the eye of the storm going into that game. He knew it. He knew all the weight of the whole fan base was on him there. A lot of people didn't want him between the pipes anymore, and he went out and had a heck of a game. I thought that was a gut check win, and it's even more important, not just his win. Obviously, the win is the most important thing, but to get the confidence of his teammates back, Pierre, because what were we saying before, how it seemed to be like, they're like, man, is this guy going to make a save? Mm-hmm. Now they don't have that doubt creeping into their head as much, and they can go and do what they got to do there. And then the other thing too, Pierre, on Colorado, you mentioned Parise. He's kind of a story nobody's talking about right now. This guy, and you probably know better than me because you covered him for so long. You knew him well over the years. He was pretty close to retirement, Pierre. I mean, he was
last year. He's done. He's 39 years old.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't even sure he was going to play this year, and he hooks on with Colorado, and he comes in, and he's never won a cup. He knows this is it. This is the last hurrah for him. So what a big goal, what a big moment for him, and I love to see it because I think he's kind of been one of those players, Pierre. I think he's been a steady player throughout his career. I think obviously the contract, kind of weighed on him and Suter in Minnesota. And I think he kind of got a bad rap, but who's going to turn that money down? But he's always been a solid player and a class act. So I was happy for him to get that goal.
Yeah, I've known him since he's been a kid at Shattuck St. Mary's. So it's a long time ago. Knew his late father very well as well, JP. It's interesting. What I remember about Zach the most is how classy he was at the 04 World Junior in Helsinki. It's the first time the Americans ever won a gold medal. Mike Eaves was a coach that had a young assistant by the name of John Hines as the assistant coach with Team USA. They had a defenseman by the name of Ryan Suter on that team. Al Montoya was the goalie. Ryan Kessler was on that team. Zach Parise was on that team. Mark Stewart, who you know well from the Boston days, Mark Stewart was on that team. So what I remember the most about Zach from that 04 World Juniors, after the Americans beat the Canadians, Zach held the American bus. I'm not kidding you. He held the American bus until Gord Miller and I were off the air. I'm not kidding. And there was a big snowstorm in Helsinki that night. And he wanted to say thank you for portraying the game in a fair light. It meant so much to Gord and I and our staff. I'll never forget that. And not a lot of players do that.
No.
And, this was really at the beginning of the iPhone/BlackBerry era. If you think to 04, 2, 03, 04, there wasn't a lot of that stuff going on. But he got text messages from family and friends saying, how fair it was because we were the only people broadcasting at that time.
That's right.
TSN and the NHL Network, I believe, picked it up. But anyways, he held the bus. He held the bus just so he could say thank you for how they were treated on the air. Team USA. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Really.
Of course, that was kind of the rise of, USA juniors starting to be a competitive program and give Canada run money and start to win gold. So he was a part of that, and he should be proud of that. All right, Pierre, the other one, though, we know, we said it before the game last night when we were on yesterday. Thatcher Demko does not play. Vancouver goes in. I mean, obviously, it's tough news to get before a game, but I didn't necessarily think they played all that bad, Pierre.
They didn't play badly. And as much as everybody's going to focus on Thatcher Demko, I think Tyler Myers being out of that game is a bit of a problem too. So at some point they got to get him back, Jimmy. At least I hope they can. For them, I don't. I like Rick Tocchet. I'm not going to pretend. I like Rick Tocchet. He's a friend of mine. I hope he does well. I like Andrew Burnett too. They deserve a lot of credit in Nashville. We talked about it. If that top line doesn't score, and they had 2 points in that game last night, Philip Forsberg was extremely good. But if Nyquist, Forsberg, and O'Reilly aren't scoring and getting points, they're not winning. No. And, you watch the Forsberg goal, you see the Forsberg assist on the Beauvillier deflection. Beauvillier was on the ice because he made a line change. But, the other two guys, Nyquist was on the ice and Forsberg was on the ice. So it just shows you what's going on in the game. But I would say for Vancouver, they shouldn't be discouraged. They played well. Yep. Nashville deserves a lot of credit, though, because they're just not going to go away.
No, they're not.
And Burnett won't let them go away.
They're a pesky team.
They are. Pesky is a great word. They're pesky.
Pesky team. They're in for a series there. All right, Pierre, let's jump ahead right now to today. And I'm just, obviously keeping tabs on Bruins and Leafs out of Toronto. And the game day skate there. Interesting thing. I'll get into the lineup in a second, but interesting comment by Jim Montgomery in his press conference after his game day skate. He said this, Jim Montgomery on not being a fan of the scheduling in the series. I would have rather been there Thursday, Saturday, if I'm being honest. I think we're spending more time in Toronto than Toronto's spending in Boston, and we're the home team. What do you make of that?
I'll respectfully disagree with the head coach of the Boston Bruins.
I do too.
Because if you remember, the Toronto Maple Leafs were on a road trip to end the year.
Yes.
And as soon as their last game of the road trip was over, they went straight into Boston. So I actually think that the coach's math would be wrong in that.
Yep. I think it is wrong.
I don't mean any disrespect to Jimmy. You know that I think the world of Jim Montgomery. But I also think you get caught up in this stuff, and sometimes there's an old saying, even a fish wouldn't get caught if he kept his mouth shut. and so, Jimmy, I think he got caught up in the emotion of it. But I think if you actually did the math, it's really a non sequitur. There's no reason to bring up the schedule. You're professional people. You've been.
I'd like to know the context of it, right? I'm just reading what the reporters that are there are just throwing the quotes up on. So I want to see the video. When that comes out, I want to see that to really understand the context of it, because I don't understand what would make him say that. And secondly, Pierre, is we've discussed when the playoffs were starting, when we were kind of prepping for the playoffs here in the eye test, we were talking about how much teams love being on the road in the playoffs because you can just sink into your routine and you don't have to worry about all the madness. But I guess when you're in a fishbowl, to continue the fish pun, like Toronto, maybe, he's like, I don't want to be dealing with this right now. I just rather have that extra day at home where I just have to deal with the small amount of media compared to what I'm dealing with in Toronto. But here's the thing. All right, I'm going to go back, and we told this story as well when on that show that I referenced. Remember Montreal 2011, what Claude Julien did?
You went to Lake
Placid. Okay, Jimmy. So if you knew this was coming and you're worried about it, well, then get out of Dodge. Go to Niagara Falls or something. Go
to Collingwood. Go to Blue Mountain. It's pretty simple.
Okay, go to Blue Mountain. Just get away.
It's a good place. You go to Niagara Valley. You don't have to go to Niagara Falls. Just go to wine country in Niagara. There are plenty of good places.
Okay. Take a retreat.
I just think this is a whole lot to do about nothing.
Yeah.
Jimmy probably didn't have to say it, but I respect him. But I think he probably forgets that the Leafs actually finished the year on the road, had to come into Boston directly. They never went home. And so they actually spent a lot of time in Boston.
And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, let's pull it up here just to make sure I get this right on the schedule, Pierre. I believe the same thing is going to happen when the series switches back. Well, I guess Toronto doesn't have to come until the day before, but yeah, there's going to be 3-day break between game 4 and 5. So he's going to,
you know what, they're doing all these breaks, right?
TV.
It's TV. It's all your buddies on TV.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's all this.
It's what it really is Saturday night
in Toronto, hockey night in Canada.
Toronto matters, and it does matter.
It does.
People can say whatever they want. It matters. And one other thing, by the way, they're talking about the TV ratings. What nobody tells you in the weeds is that all those ratings that they say are up 60%, they're counting the local broadcasts on that too, because in the first round, the locals are allowed to broadcast. So one of the things that was done a while ago, and this was Sam Flood that did this at NBC, they actually petitioned and worked on it where the ratings from the regional broadcasters would count with the national shows. Just so we're clear, they're not bringing that up, but that's part of what.
And then, of course, all going to switch to national in the second round. The regionals will lose
coverage. National in the second round. Yeah.
Pierre, but just so some lineup changes though for the Bruins in that, just so that people know right now. So you're going to have, obviously, we discussed Andrew Peeke is out pretty much for the rest of the series for the Bruins. But that means into the lineup.
One thing on that. Do you think that Peake's injury is an upper body, which they're reporting?
I do. I think it's his hand, Pierre. I think he took it right off the hand. That's what it looks like to me.
So you thought, I wasn't sure. I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
So I saw them reporting that last night that it was an upper body. I was like, I don't remember him getting hit. I remember him blocking a shot.
Yeah. No, there was one where actually I think the announcers actually thought Allmark had made the save, but Peake's hand had kind of gotten away and deflected it wide.
Okay.
So they realized after it was him that made the save with his hand technically. So, so he's out. In comes Mason Lohrei will get in, Pierre, and make his Stanley Cup playoff debut. He's never played a Stanley Cup playoff game in his career. He will get in. He's going to play next to Charlie McAvoy tonight, which I think is very interesting. And he's technically actually going to replace Matt Grzelcyk, who will be a healthy scratch. He'll come out. So you got McAvoy and Lohrei on the left, McAvoy on the right. Then you're going to have Lindholm left, Carlo on the right. And then Parker Wotherspoon will come in to replace Andrew Peeke, and Kevin Shattenkirk will remain in the lineup. So just your thoughts on those changes there, Pierre. I'm a little surprised. I'm just going to say one thing. I'm a little surprised Shattenkirk stays in. I love him. I think he's a class act. I just was not impressed at all with his first 2 games.
No, I was surprised they would take Grzelcyk out.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a righty-lefty thing. I get all that. But I was surprised they'd take Grzelcyk out because I don't think he's played poorly.
I don't either.
He's played, in my opinion, he's played better than Kevin has.
He has.
I like Shattenkirk. Look at Shattenkirk's been a good player for a long time.
Stanley Cup champ.
Been a tremendous asset for whatever organization he's played for.
Yeah.
And he's not a high-maintenance player. But I don't think, Father Time's being very friendly to him right now, and he's just not playing as well as he used to. Whereas you need some live legs against a fast team. And I think Grzelcyk's skating is better and his puck moving is better.
I told you too. Remember that Wotherspoon has played either side. He's been comfortable doing either side. So you could have moved him to the right, put Grzelcyk on the left or Lohrei there. So
you did tell me that.
Yeah.
I don't. To me, who's playing in goal?
Mm-hmm. Swayman's there.
That's,
yeah. So the rotation stays for now. But now the interesting thing will be now what happens if Swayman comes in and wins again. I would think that they have to just stick with him after this.
I don't know.
You don't know, but
I'm not going down that road because I thought there was no way they were pulling it. I got it wrong.
Yeah,
I got it wrong going into game 2. I thought that there was no way they were taking Swayman out after game 1. He hadn't lost to the Leafs all year.
I know.
I don't get that philosophy. If I had been on the staff, I would have probably voiced that in a meeting. Mm-hmm. But then when the door opens, everybody sings from the same songbook. But I would have said, well, wait a second. Can I put my hand up here for a second?
Yeah. So interesting there. But anyhow, on the Toronto side, Pierre, just so people know, I know they might be seen out there, Auston Matthews was not at the skate today for Toronto, but it's just a maintenance day. I mean, that guy played minutes in the first 2 games, and he was such a physical force as well, as we discussed. So they give him some rest, and it looks like William Nylander will make his debut in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. Can he come in and be effective, Pierre? Is it going to take him a little to get his legs under him?
Oh, he can. He can. I don't know, the nature of his injuries, so much speculation.
Yeah.
Clearly he hasn't been 100%. But if his injuries, the pain can be managed, then I think he can help. He's got live legs. He's got huge skill. Mm-hmm. But if he's not able to manage the pain, then I don't know how much he can help. And nobody will know that until you see him on the ice.
He's on the ice, exactly. I think, Pierre, if you're Toronto, this is how I'm approaching this game. You just keep doing exactly what you've been doing. And you keep taking it to them physically like you did in game 2. I think that right now it's important for them, especially in their home barn, to come out and set that tone right away. Don't let the Bruins start to find their game in the first few minutes or in the first period. They need to come right out, feed off that crowd, and harness the crowd instead of let it work against them.
Well, I'll take the other side because I agree with everything you said about Toronto. Yep. And Boston better communicate well behind the bench, on the bench, and on the ice.
Yes.
Because when you're playing in an environment like that, and I can tell you from experience, coaching in Stanley Cup finals and Stanley Cup playoff games, the buildings get loud, especially when you're a team that might be considered the favorite. Buildings get loud when the other team senses that you're vulnerable. So you need to be loud as a coaching staff, you need to be loud as players, and you need to be loud on the ice. Whether it's goalie to defense, defense to forwards, or forwards to forwards, you got to be loud. Yep. And if they don't communicate well, that'll be very apparent. If they take another too many men on the ice penalty, that's a problem. They took 2 in game 2. That can't happen again. That cannot happen again because they're playing
especially on the road.
Yeah, they're playing a matchup game, and if you're doing it on the road, and I've done it, you better communicate well, and guys better be listening.
Yeah,
they better be. So I'll take it from the Bruins side, and I think the Bruins will do better than people think because I do think they're professionals there that will understand and they will listen. But if you were to ask me who the favorite is going into Game 3 tonight, I'd say Toronto's the favorite.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to talk about one of our new sponsors there, Pierre, CBET, who does have the Toronto Maple Leafs as the favorite in this game, Pierre. And right now, just for our gambling friends out there, the Maple Leafs come in. It's pretty even, though. Both teams are minus, so that means it's almost a pick 'em. The Leafs are at minus 112. The Bruins are at minus 108. You want to take the Leafs on the puck line at minus 1.5. You can get plus 225 value, and then the over-under is at 6 right now. So go to our friends over at CBET right now. You make your first bet, no matter what happens, win or lose, you're going to get refunded $3,000 Canadian. That's a heck of a deal. You get some play money there. You're playing with house money right off the bat, as they like to say. So check out CBET and use the code SICK, like the song says in the beginning, SICK, to get that $3,000 Canadian refund. Pierre, ton of other hockey going on tonight. Actually, one game less than last night. But we still got good ones going. By the way, before we get into the game tonight, jumping even more ahead to tomorrow, news coming across the wire right before we came on. Little change between the pipes for the New York Islanders tomorrow in Game 3.
Sorokin's in, I saw that.
I don't know what I think of that because I did not think Varlamov was the issue, considering how many shots and how many chances that the Carolina Hurricanes had and how long he kept them in the game. He did all he could. I mean, he did everything he could. It's not his fault.
And they have the extra day, too.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's, every other day. They have 2 days between games 2 and 3. I know Carolina's flying this afternoon. Carolina's leaving this afternoon to go to New York. Yep. So, it's interesting. Very interesting. Now, what we don't know, and nobody tells you, did Varlamov tweak something?
That could be
a little nicked up because of all the shots and the action around him.
Yep.
You never know. So you got to be really careful when you see lineup changes, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it could be because of an injury or something else that the guy's not feeling very well. Sometimes it happened. I can tell you, it happened with our team with Tommy Barrasso.
Yep.
We didn't want to take Tommy out.
Yeah.
Tommy came out, Kenny Reagan went in. I mean, it was that simple.
But you're not going to tell us what it is because you don't want to let that information out. So.
You know, that happens. It just sometimes that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Pierre, interesting thing too. And I know you don't really get into the gambling, but I mean, we just on this note, I was talking about it with my buddies from the Ice Guys there, and it's interesting to see. And I get it. I'm all for it. I have no problem with it. I love that coaches don't let on injuries. I love that they're coy about things, whether on their starting goalies or what have you, or who's going to be in the lineup. I get the mind games. I get that part. That's part of the chess game. And I am totally on board with it. I do not want to see it go.
Yeah.
That being said, the league is now very much in bed with gambling apps.
Yeah.
I wonder, is there going to be a push eventually for coaches to have to be a little more open with this information, given how tied in the league is with these gambling apps now?
Especially like what the NFL does?
Yes.
I would say at some point they're probably going to have to if they want to continue to be sponsored by these gambling people. But here's one thing I would say in defense of teams and owners and coaches and players. No other sport outside of Irish hurling has a weapon in its hand.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have out of bounds in our league.
Exactly.
And targeting happens in our league. Trust me, I can tell you because I helped create plans where we did target people.
Yep.
And so, and I don't mean dirty. I mean just within the rules, the confines of the game. So it's part of the discussion when you go into a meeting before a playoff series or during a series. So that's the one thing I'd say where I kind of understand why there's no injury disclosure because of the fact that guys do have sticks, 100%. Targeting happens, and we don't have out of bounds.
Yep.
So that's why I'm not for.
Yeah, I'm with you too.
But I would just say I understand the other side of it too.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I'm glad you said that, Pierre. I'm so glad you put that and how blunt and honest you were about that, because I think a lot of times fans and even my fellow media, I'm lucky because I grown to know people like you or former players, coaches, what have you, GMs in the game, and I get to have discussions like that and understand what goes on behind the scenes. But the average fan doesn't understand that, and they think, oh, well, these coaches are just trying to be jerks and they don't want to tell us. It has nothing to do with it. They're trying to protect their players. That's the bottom line. Like the players' health is at risk, and so I'm totally for it. But I do think we're going to come to a head soon with this, Pierre. Maybe this offseason, maybe next.
Yeah. So that's going to be something. But it's going to be the NHL Players Association has to be involved in that. So agents will be involved in that. The league's going to have to be involved in that. The Board of Governors, competition committee. There's going to be a lot of different agendas in that meeting.
Yep.
It's not just, Gary Bettman and the head of the NHLPA.
Yeah.
It's
DraftKings or FanDuel.
Yeah, it's a lot of different people, and everybody's got their own agenda. So there's in order for that to happen, there'd have to be massive capitulation from one side to the other. They'll have to.
And you don't have to comment on this if you feel uncomfortable. But I'm telling you what I would do. So say I'm a coach, right? Yeah. And then the NHL rules that I have to divulge information more than we have in the past. Mm-hmm. What are they going to do? They're going to put a lie detector on me?
No, but they're going to. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to fine you like they do in the NFL.
You can fine me. At least I win and I protect my player.
Owners don't like to. They don't like to.
It's too slippery a slope.
He wants to pay extra. I'm just telling you. It's like, I hate to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. All right. How people were talking about Arizona, and now they're moving to Utah. And people are bringing up, them not paying their bills, or were they paying their bills, or what was going on, what kind of hotels they were staying in compared to the rest of the league, and were they living up to their responsibilities. They lost a lot of money there.
Oh, yeah.
They lost a lot of money. That's one example. So rather than lose more money, they sold me. And I can tell you, I won't tell you the teams, but in the spring, ownership groups have things called cash calls. Mm-hmm. and it happens in more cities than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And owners don't like cash calls.
Yeah.
They like revenue.
Pierre, you know what?
They don't
I'm
like
glad.
cash
So
calls.
you said this to me off the air, but I also heard you talk about it with our good friend Mitch Melnick on your segment you've been doing coming out of COVID, and at least up until about last year, you were adamant about the fact that, okay, you can look at a team and say, yeah, they're doing this and they're seemingly spending to the cap, but you have to look deeper given the fact that so many teams suffered such off-ice losses, because most of these owners, Pierre, the team is not the only thing they own. I mean, I'll give Jeremy Jacobs, for example. He's one of the biggest.
He's one of the fortunate ones.
In hospitality, right? I mean, he owns tons of concessions and hotels, casinos, what have you. So just because maybe his hockey team didn't lose as much money, it doesn't mean what business was one of the hardest hit as a result of COVID? Travel.
But travel and hot. I can tell you, our business. Listen, the league lost $1 billion.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want. They lost $1 billion. So
and you were adamant saying that you kept saying, I'll believe this cap going up when I see it, because everyone was saying it was going to go up like that, and it didn't. Then they said it again. It didn't. They said it again. And only now are we supposedly really going to see it make a drastic jump. And you're the one to point that out, and I credit you for that.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. Here's what I would tell you, too. People ask me all the time, why didn't NBC stay in the hockey game? They wanted to stay in the hockey game. NBC wanted to stay in the hockey game. I give the league a lot of credit. They were able to find one group that was prepared to pay $475 million and another group that was prepared to pay $275 million. So that $1 billion loss that the league incurred because of COVID, they almost wiped it out in 1 year because of TV contracts. That's great business by Gary Bettman and the Board of Governors. I'm just telling you. So people say, well, why did NBC get out? It wasn't that NBC got out. NBC didn't want to lose money at hockey, so they weren't prepared to pay $500,000 or more. This came in at 400, 600. It came in at, almost $750 million.
Yeah.
NBC wasn't spending that.
Right.
I don't blame them. So there's no way they could make money at it. So I give the league a lot of credit. They almost wiped out $1 billion of losses in a year. That's unbelievable.
Excuse me. Yeah, I know. So just to circle it back to what we're saying, back to the gambling thing and the development, there is so much money to be made. And if people think, oh, well, they made a ton. No, they're still, in my eyes, Pierre, they're just getting back to where they probably want to be, if not still a little slightly below,
One thing I'd say, if you look at it, and it's really impressive, the buildings that we've seen the games be played in so far, the atmospheres have been amazing.
It's been awesome.
The fans are filling them up. They're filling them up. And so I'll use Montreal as an example. When the Molson family bought the team for the third time, back when they had their run in 2010, and they got to the Eastern Conference Final where they lost to the Philadelphia Flyers, Jeff Molson, I think, was able to wipe out most, if not all, of his debt service from that run.
Wow.
A significant amount of it. So it's pretty significant when you go deep in the playoffs. It's a very amazing thing.
And how about all these teams too, Pierre, that, maybe 10 years ago, right? They went, you look at their record, you're like, why is this team trying? Just go into a rebuild. Like, why are you trying to make the playoffs when you know you need to? There you go. That's why. Because that's what the playoff gates do, is it's more money.
I've interviewed for a fair number of GM's jobs and gone pretty deep in most of them. One that was really cool was they didn't even have any pretense. They said, as long as we have these players, we expect to win the Stanley Cup every year.
Oh, wow.
And I just smiled and I said, it's a hardy goal. I can understand how you could see it that way. I'm just not sure that's how it goes, because the other guys in the league, they have star players too, and they pay them. Yeah. So as much as you think you guys are really good, there's some other holes in the lineup.
Yeah.
And I came very close to getting that job, and I really enjoyed the process, but I knew that
You knew then what the mindset is. Yeah.
the mindset was pretty set on we need to go deep in the playoffs every year. That's the mandate from ownership.
Wow. And they're just like, we don't care. Figure it out, right?
Figure it out.
All right, let's get into these games quick. We'll switch over to our viewers and listeners here for some questions. The games tonight, we talked about Bruins Leafs. Pierre, Golden Knights can go up 2-0 on the Stars. I think we agree we'll probably see a much better Jake Ottinger tonight.
Well, it has to be, Jimmy. I got game one wrong. I'm not going to kid you. I thought Dallas would play well. They did. Dallas played well. Vegas was good enough to win. Jake wasn't good. I thought Jake would have a real good game one. He didn't. He played poorly. So he's got to be better. That's all.
Yep. So that's that one. And then we'll look at the other game having tonight here, the Kings and Oilers. I mean, the Kings, I don't think anybody expected them to win this series. I think game one went pretty much as everyone expected. That being said, as the famous saying goes, that's why they play the game, right? It doesn't always go as expected. And Edmonton cannot afford to sit back at all or to just kind of look ahead.
No, but LA's got to have a plan to shut down Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
And LA can't take penalties. You can't. You got to have the Tampa Bay, Florida mentality, whereas Florida can't take 3 or more penalties or they're going to have problems in the game. It's almost the same thing for LA. You just can't take a lot of penalties against Edmonton. You can't.
And is that harder, Pierre, when you're a team like LA that sort of feeds off the physical play, feeds off the grind, feeds off playing a defensive game? Does it make it even harder to stay out of the box?
It does, but you've got guys that have won multiple Stanley Cups there, in particular Kopitar, who's a huge leader for them, and Drew Doughty. These are really important players, and they set the tone. They're the guys. And, Phil Deneau's, he's been around. Like, Phil Deneau's been around. He knows what it takes to win. So you've got players there that understand how to maintain the proper decorum in a dressing room, and that carries over to the ice. So I would say that they shouldn't have that problem. They shouldn't. Doesn't mean they won't, but they shouldn't.
By the way, quick note on LA too, specifically on Pierre-Luc Dubois. We all know the criticism he's taken, the struggles he's had this year. Earlier this morning, I just caught it on Twitter, a quick sound clip from our friend Andy Strickland had Todd McClellan on, and McClellan really went to bat for the kid, Pierre. Said, look, I get it. I get the expectations. He's going to be the first to tell you that he didn't have a good year. I'm going to be the second to tell you that he didn't have a good year. But he said, I want to make clear to everyone out there, just from what I saw, the kid cares. It's not a matter of him mailing it in. Yeah, it's not a matter of him thinking he's above anyone because of what he makes or just, he was able to dictate where he went. That doesn't mean that he doesn't care about winning. So I thought it was nice of McClellan to do that because, this is a guy that's been under fire out here.
Well, first of all, Todd's a great guy.
He's a class.
And he's a smart hockey coach. Sometimes the pictures don't always paint the person. And when you see him in a game, he's wound up and really intense and pumped up. And sometimes you'll say, wow, that guy's unglued. And he's not. That's how he portrays himself. But I can tell you, having spent a lot of time with him both privately and in public settings, he's a fantastic person. Yeah. And he really cares about his players. He cares significantly about his players. And here's, again, you look at pedigree. How did a guy learn how to coach? He learned from Jacques Lemaire. Mm-hmm. People forget about all this stuff.
We keep going back to that name, Pierre, don't we?
He was part of that. You learn from that. You go I know people are going to say, "Oh, McGuire, shut up about Babcock." I'm not gonna. Mike Babcock is a really good coach. I know he made some mistakes. There's no perfect person. He made some mistakes, but Todd worked with him for a long time, and they had a lot of success. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of success. And the late Brad McCrimmon, part of working with Todd too. So you hang around with those people enough, you get better. Yeah, he's a really good coach.
Yeah, he'll find his way back in if he wants it for sure.
He's fine. He'll get back if he wants to.
And by the way, Sammy, our producer, telling us just now, Bruce Cassidy announcing that Nick Hague is out for Vegas tonight. That's a It's a decent loss there.
No, Nick's been good. I mean, they've got the Hannafin acquisition pretty substantial. So Shea Theodore matters a lot. Noah Hannafin matters a lot. Alec Martinez matters a lot there. Alex Pietrangelo, getting him back from an appendicitis situation, that matters a lot. So as nice as Nick Hague is as a player,
they've got depth.
They got depth, and he's down the lineup. So, is it a loss? Yeah, but it's part of – so as an assistant general manager told me about 20 minutes before I came on with you, stop talking – not talking about you and I. All these people that are talking about injuries, stop talking about it because it happens. Every game.
I know.
It's the playoffs. Every day somebody else gets hurt. You got to deal with it. And that's why depth matters.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly whether it's star guys or whether it's depth guys, like you said.
When Trennan and Duhaime went to Colorado, I know you asked me what team did something that impressed you that was under the radar. Colorado.
There you go.
Colorado, because those big bodies, they're tanks.
Yep.
They run over you, and if you're playing against them in a 7-game series and they're getting 5 to 6 hits a game because both of them can skate and both of them are big and both of them are mean, and they start pile driving defensemen of the other team, that creates a problem for the opposition.
Oh yeah, for sure. They've been an instant effect for that team ever since they got there. All right, let's talk quickly about our other sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics. We'll pull that up here. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport. Moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. And tell them we sent you here at the Sick Podcast at the Sick Podcast and the iTest Podcast. And let's get right over to our questions right now. All right, Randy Workman. How you doing, Randy? Hey, guys, how much changes do the Canucks have to make for Game 3? I don't know. What do you think, Pierre?
I think they need to get Tyler Myers back.
Yeah, if they can.
Get Demko back, but they need Tyler Myers back at some point. I don't think they need to make too many changes. I would just, because it's a matchup situation, you don't get last change in Nashville. You have to be prepared, and this is where Adam Foote will play a pretty significant role. I know people don't like to identify assistant coaches, but they do matter, especially in matchup games. Adam Foote's going to have to really coach well down in Nashville, so they get the right change on Nyquist, Forsberg, and O'Reilly. Really important part of that series. Really important.
For sure. That thing's going 7, I think. All right, next question. Alex Ivanovsky. When I watched Hellebuyck in the regular season, he was by far the best goalie I saw play this year. I know Colorado is great offensively, but you are allowed to make a big save. The Manson goal hurt.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things in the Manson goal. What's Gabe Velarde doing? That's number one. Number two, I didn't hear, and maybe it happened, but usually the goalie taps his stick on the ice to let the guys know the guy's coming out of the box. Mm-hmm. And, Nikolai Ehlers fell over on the far boards, and he was trying to stick handle, and he lost it. But what's Gabe Velarde doing? And, yeah, I get it. You have to make a big save, but at some point, that's a good shot by Manson. You got to give some credit to Manson. He beat some 5-hole. To me, the bigger goal, the one that really mattered, that crushed, I thought, Winnipeg, when he could go out and play the puck, and he doesn't make the play on the puck, talking about Hellebuyck, and Parise ends up scoring. Yeah. That was a killer. Like, the game was 2-2 at the time, and Winnipeg had all the momentum. That was tough.
It was deflating for sure. For sure. All right, next question. Samuel Matei, how impressive is Florida's transition game? Watching last night, and you see they have such a north-south team, it's incredibly impressive. Also, the way they lock down the neutral zone is so textbook. 100% agree with you, Sam. I noticed that last year when they beat the Bruins and they pulled off that upset there, and that's why now they're a favorite to win the Cup. That's one of the main reasons, I think.
Completely agree. That's such a great point by Sam. Put 2 points, actually.
Yep.
The way they play north-south and the way they congest the neutral zone, they turn it into a swamp. They really do. They're tough to play against. They really look at Tampa got outshot in that game again last night, and that went to overtime. And they had power play opportunities this time around, which they didn't have in game one. They only had 2 power play opportunities in game one. So Florida's tough. I won't pretend. I think Florida's probably going to be the team from the East that plays in the Stanley Cup final. I could be wrong. But that's who I think will be there.
Yeah, they're built to win at this time of year for sure.
Stay healthy. The Bennett injury, man.
That could be key. Yep, that's an X factor for sure. All right. Next question. What do we got? Jeffrey B. Hey, Jeff. More concerning for Vancouver is how quiet Pettersson has been. That is an understatement.
Everybody that I know in hockey is saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I understand that. Let them, sometimes those guys show up. What about Marner? What about Marner?
Yep.
He's
hearing it. I'll tell you that.
He is hearing it, but I think he'll bounce back and play well. We'll see.
I think Mitch Marner is going to have a big game tonight. I really do.
I think Pettersson will go into Nashville and probably play really well too. So we always
happens.
Size of star players, but he does. Jeffrey B's not wrong.
And we don't know. He, like we were just discussing, we don't know what he's going through. There could be something he's not letting on.
But he does. Like if they're going to go deep, they need
for sure.
For sure.
All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre fans continue to tell me, speak of the devil, tell me that Marner is not a money player. I continue to fight that statement. How would you refer to that statement? I don't think it's fair to say that. Can he be better in the playoffs? Yeah. But I think the jury's still out.
Jury's still out, but I think he can be better in the playoffs.
Yep.
There have been a lot of comparisons to Patrick Kane because they both played for London Knights.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say he's no Patrick Kane.
Yeah, they're different.
So I just think it's not a fair comparison. Is Mitch Marner a good player? He's a good player. But is he Patrick Kane? He's not. He's not Patrick Kane. Yeah,
I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Alex Ivanovsky, here's a non-playoff question. Who do you think the Blue Jackets should be interested in for their GM position? Well, I think he's co-hosting this with me right now, but that's another story.
Nice. I'll tell you who should be in the running, honestly, is Ray Shero. Ray Shero should be massively considered. If you look at the teams that he built in Pittsburgh, if you look at the teams that he helped build in Nashville out of nothing with David Poile, if you look at, and he was working on a small budget there. When he first went to Pittsburgh, it was a small budget too. They were having major financial issues. If you look at the teams he was helped put together in New Jersey.
Exactly.
All those, and Tommy Fitz would be the first person to tell you.
I was just going to say that, Pierre. Fitz would tell you the same thing.
Listen, you want to get instantaneous street cred, get a guy that's won the cup and build top-winning teams.
Yeah,
and he's the guy that's done it.
And even if he's not your GM, bring him in as a director of hockey ops. I don't know if they can do that in Columbus, obviously, but another team that may need that position filled or is thinking of creating it. He
should be one of the top guys for any position that's open in upper management. He should. Now, there are a lot of other guys that are really competent, really competent people. A lot of assistant GMs, a lot of GMs that are no longer employed. There are a lot of real competent people out there. But he should be at the top of most people's lists.
I agree. All right, next question. Roy Anderson, Boston works hard, but they can't compete with the talent level of the Leafs. Okay, so here's what I'll say to that quickly, Pierre, is I agree they can't compete with the talent level of the Leafs if we're talking talent on talent. But I think in years past, their work ethic was more than enough to overcompensate for that. Now you factor in that Toronto has figured out the work ethic part and the physical part, specifically their best player, Auston Matthews, has, and they're that much more dangerous.
So Toronto has one thing that Boston doesn't have, an elite game breaker like Auston Matthews.
Yep.
Pasternak's good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's not a game breaker like Auston Matthews. He's not. Right. Pastrnak needs people to help him manufacture chances. Mm-hmm. Auston Matthews can do it by himself. He can. So that's number one. Number two, the thing I'll be watching for tonight, and Morgan Riley's a really important player. Jimmy, I told you this off the air.
Yep.
He didn't look right the last bit of that game number 2. He didn't look right. And he's probably fine. He might be fatigued, but I'll be watching to see how he looks to start the game tonight.
Yeah,
I'll be watching that.
All right, next question. Ron LaRook, going back to U.S. college hockey, does the portal strengthen or weaken teams, or does it make it more of a level, playing field? I think it's going both ways.
Well, the portal can crush teams.
It's crushed a few teams
if you lose good players, it can really hurt your team. It can also really help teams. I think North Dakota did really well in the portal this year. I think Merrimack did really well in the portal this year. I think Arizona State late did really well. Ryan Kerwin going in the portal and leaving Penn State and going to Arizona State, that's a significant get.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I think Bowling Green with a new coach has done really well in the portal. And I can say this because I know the players. Northeastern University, they did unbelievably well in the portal. They did really, really well in the portal. So it can really help some teams. And if you're the team that's losing players, it can crush your team. It can crush your team.
Yeah. And Pierre, by the way, you mentioned Arizona State. They announced their Desert Hockey Classic yesterday, and my alma mater is headed out to Tempe to go to that tournament. I might have to get out there, check out Mullet Arena next year.
You need to go there. I was there for the opening weekend when Colgate University opened the building with Arizona State. It was fantastic hockey. The crowd was amazing. It was an amazing crowd. It was jammed. You couldn't walk anywhere. It was awesome. It was like 6,800, 7,000 people in that building. And it was just fantastic hockey. They've done an amazing – Arizona State hockey's done a fantastic job. They've done a great job.
Looking forward to that. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. Should Vegas be concerned with how badly they got outshot in the second half of the last game? Looks like Dallas started to figure out their counterattack. Yeah, I think those things carry over.
That's what we were talking about before. So, yes, great point, Jeffrey, and we agree on that. I talked to Jimmy about that on and off the air. I think that's
called him in Toronto heading into game 2, Pierre, carrying over from the third period of game 1.
Yes.
It worked. It happens. So definitely great point by you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, great
point. All right, next question. Chris Blue Shirts. What's up, Chris? Good afternoon, Jimmy and Pierre. Question for you. Which team has the better prospects in their system? The Rangers have Berard, Othman, Gabe Perreault. Seems okay. Your thoughts? Let's go Rangers.
I don't know which other team Chris was talking about, but I know the Rangers have very good prospects. Very, very good prospects. I know all those players you just mentioned there. They're all really good players.
Yeah, I think the Ducks got some guys coming, Pierre.
The Ducks have players coming for sure. Detroit has players coming. There are a lot of teams. Yeah. Dallas has players coming.
That's a great one to bring up because they're doing that and they're still competing for the cup.
Well, Dallas is they signed Justin Rakovian from Northeastern. He's a really good player. He's an eye test player.
Yes.
He's a really, really, really good player. So there's a lot. They've signed Ben Cross out of St. Lawrence University. He's gone down there and started with their American League team and done fantastically well in goal. So there's a bunch of teams that actually have a lot of prospects. Florida's got some really good prospects too. And it will be interesting to see because I was looking at that this morning really early when I was doing my tape breakdown. What happens if Sam Bennett's hurt for a long time internally? What direction do they go? Do they go 11-7? Do they go 12-6? Somebody up from the American League? What does Florida do? Because I don't know how Bennett can play in game 3. I just don't know how he does.
Yeah. No, it doesn't sound like he does. So
I just don't know how he does. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right, next question. Jason Logan. Hey, Jay. Hey, guys. If you were rebuilding a team, where would you start your team around? Starting at goal or D or forward?
Well, it's pretty easy for me. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I say start at goal and you build out. Goal to D, forward.
I would prioritize defenseman and goaltending, and then center iceman would be important after that.
Yeah, right up the middle.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Roy Anderson. Pierre, what is the badge on your sweater? Is it USA Hockey?
No, it's not. It's Mario Lemieux's hockey from the '87 Canada Cup, and
Emblem.
I was fortunate enough to be invited by Mario and his foundation to go work at his fantasy camp, which I've done the last 2 years. And every year they have a different theme. So this was the theme this year. The uniforms were spectacular. The guys all love them. You know, that camp does so much for so many people, Jimmy, in the community. It's just the foundation is amazing, Mario's foundation. And, you know, all the people that I get to work with there, the players, obviously, and the great Hall of Famers, Kevin Stevens and Joey Mullen and Larry Murphy and Jaromir Jagr and Dougie Gilmore and Grant Fuhr. I mean, Brian Trottier, the list, it never ends. It's just a potpourri of elite players. Ryan Malone and Matthew Barnaby were superstars. Ryan time there. And Matthew handled himself so well. Barnaby and Ryan Malone was great. It's really a special thing to be a part of, and I'm really grateful that Mario includes me in it. I love working with the players.
How's Ryan Malone doing? What's he doing now?
He looks great. He's
nice.
He's getting into the mixed martial arts stuff. He's getting into the mixed martial arts stuff, and he's in shape. He's good. He's
good stuff. I always loved his dad too. Got to sit next to him.
I worked with Bugsy for a few years. He's a good man. His father
a couple cold ones with him and Russ Conway back in the day.
That's okay.
All right, next question. Okay. Angelina Jolie. While Pierre has mentioned Botterill's firing in 2020 has a lot to do with the Sabres' lack of success, the Sabres haven't missed on any of their first-round picks. Can you explain your rationale?
Yeah, sure I can, because the 2020 draft was an elite draft, and they did do very well. But that scouting list had already been supported and supplied by the Boston scouting staff. I think there were 18 people that were released that day when they fired everybody. I think only one scout survived the mass firing, and that was Rob Riley. And eventually they let him go as well. And he's doing a great job with the Colorado Avalanche right now. No, you're right. They have not missed on any of their first-round picks. Totally agree. But I also know they haven't played a playoff game either. So the rebuild had to start over again. Yeah. And now like Jimmy knows, I'm a fan of Lindy going there. It's a team that desperately needs an identity, and I think Lindy will provide an identity. But there were a lot of people painting Jason Botterill as the villain here. That wasn't right. He was doing a lot of really good things there. He really was. I was around their team a lot, so I want Buffalo to do well. It's one of the few cities in the league where real fans pay real money to go watch NHL games. Yeah. Those fans
are great hockey.
They're amazing fans. Buffalo's an awesome hockey city. It's an awesome hockey city.
And, man, just if they get good at the same time the Leafs are good and get that rivalry go, that'll be a hell of an environment. All right, next question.
That would be good.
Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, if you're the Flames, would big game hunting be the way to go in the offseason?
I would say no.
Me neither.
Not yet. So one of the things, you got Wolf in goal that you're trying to cultivate. You've made a big trade with Vancouver. You made a big trade with Dallas. So you're bringing young guys into your organization to try to make your team better. You got Matthew Coronado, who you signed out of Harvard as a sophomore. So you've got all these young guys that are coming through your system at the same time. If you go big game hunting, a lot of those guys might not get the opportunity. Look at Zary. And how well he's done. So, I just think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And don't rush it. If you were to ask me that next summer, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Because then you'll know he fits, he doesn't fit, he fits, he doesn't fit. And then you can adjust. But I would say this year, probably not.
All right. We got time for about 3 more here. Let's go. Alex Evanowski. What's up, Alex? Patrick Kane was the most clutch player I ever saw play come playoff time. The amount of game-winning goals and overall influence he had on the Blackhawks, especially from 2013 to 2015, was otherworldly. Absolutely. We agree.
That's why I was saying Mitch Marner's not Patrick Kane.
No. Different players.
Totally different.
All right. Next question. Ron LaRuck. Jimmy Murphy, I'm sorry I didn't know you before this podcast. What is your background in hockey and how did you get to reporting? You're awesome at this. Wow. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Means a lot. I started off, Ron. Actually, I don't know if you saw the episode we had with Greg Cronin, the head coach now of the Anaheim Ducks. He was an assistant with the Islanders when I got out of UMass about 20 years ago. He got me a job in media relations down there, doing like a post-grad internship, kind of networked myself into the business. And I've worked with Nesson and ESPN Boston and now Boston Hockey Now. And now here I am on the eye test working with Pierre McGuire, and I'm loving it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, Ron, ditto. I agree. He's really good at this.
Thanks, guys. Checks in the mail, Ron. Anyhow, next question. Morantz, goof day, guys. Do you not agree that today's goalies, the style of play is a carbon copy of each other? Some are just better than others. No goalie has his own style. I see where you're coming from. I totally think that there's an argument to be made there, but I don't know about that. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like Sergei Bobrovsky, I don't think is the same as Linus Ullmark.
He's not the same as Andrei Vasilevsky.
He's not the same as Andrei Vasilevsky. I think Jeremy Swayman is kind of a throwback. There's a reason they call him Bulldog. He's very aggressive out there. He likes to get into the fray. I don't think all goalies are like that. I think there's some unique personality still.
Yeah, Corey Crawford was different than most of the guys he played against in the Cup Finals when he was winning in Chicago. Marty Brodeur was, and I know it's different. I know it's not this era per se. Mm-hmm. Marty was way different than Roberto Luongo.
I think maybe, one thing, though, to the credit of the question there is maybe the fans aren't seen as much as we do, Pierre, because we get to deal with them sometimes behind the scenes. We see the personalities a little more. You know what I mean? So I can see where he's coming from, but watch more closely. You'll see. There's differences for sure.
Part of the difference, I think, especially with the trapezoid in place, are the guys that can play the puck.
Yeah.
They make a big difference, especially with zero tolerance on obstruction, so you can't hold up for your defense partner. If you got a goalie that can skate and handle the puck, it makes a big difference for your team. And that's where I think a lot of the stylistic stuff is different.
Yeah.
I think it's J.S. Giguère was a blocker, okay? He was really good. He was really good at blocking pucks. He was not so much a saver, he was a blocker. Tim Thomas played the position like he was a linebacker. He would attack the shooter.
He was the most unorthodox, chaotic, but controlled chaotic guy I've ever seen.
And then watch Mike Vernon play, and Mike Vernon was a stand-up guy that very seldom went down, and when he did, it's because it was a last-gap effort to stop the puck. So I think goalie styles are different. But the one thing I would say, there was a huge run on butterfly goalies back after Patrick Waugh in '86.
Yes.
And that started with the Allaire brothers. It really did. And they've done magnificent work with a lot of different goalies, whether it was in Anaheim, New York still, Montreal. The Allaire brothers did a lot to help change the goalie coaching business. They really did.
All right. We got two more, I guess. So let's do it. Two more. Angelina Jolie, Colby Armstrong has mentioned bringing back the two-line pass rule to bring back smart hockey versus pure speed and tempo. What do you guys think? By the way, too, I want to tell everybody, check it out on Sportsnet. Great interview Colby Armstrong did with Rick Tocchet and Quinn Hughes. It was funny. And, anything Colby does usually is going to have comedy in it, and it did. It was good stuff. But go ahead, Pierre. I'll let you take this.
I don't agree respectfully with Colby. If you saw what happened with the red line in, it was a dead puck era. We didn't have big point totals. Teams couldn't come from behind. I'll give you statistical analysis and information on the 2004 Stanley Cup Final. The last year we had a two-line pass.
Great series that was.
Calgary versus Tampa.
Yep.
If you scored the first goal in any game, you never lost the lead and you never lost the game. That can't happen. We see a team the other night down 3-0, Carolina versus the Islanders. If the red line's in place, see you later, alligator. That game's over 3-1. Best 3-2.
Clamp down.
So, no, I don't want to see the red line put back in. And a lot of these teams, I will just tell Angelina this, a lot of these teams draft players. Well, they draft them because the red line's out, because they take the small guys. How do you think Connor Bedard would do if the red line was in play and it was Darian Hatcher and Kevin Hatcher and Sean Chambers and Scott Stevens and all these behemoths on defense who Vegas has modeled their defense after all those big guys. How do you think Connor Bedard would do in a playoff series, Chicago versus Vegas?
Neutralized very fast.
You would never even appreciate his talent. So I don't want to see that. And smart hockey can happen a lot. And the guy that figured it out first, Angelina, was Peter Laviolette in 2006. The first time we had a Stanley Cup without the red line was 2006.
Yeah.
And Carolina won. What's the one thing that he had over most other coaches at that time? He had played at Westfield State, a college team that didn't have the red line. He understood the stretch pass game that most NHL coaches did not understand.
Yep. Correct. And you know what, too? I know there's an argument out there. We've heard Don Cherry said put the red line back for player safety. No, keep the red line out, make the equipment a little less weaponry, I guess would be the word.
I think, to credit Don, one of the things he was talking about was for icings, touch icings, and he was right about that. And that's why the league modified the rule, and it's a race now to the top of the circle. It's not a race to the icing line. And so I think that the league actually listened to Don on that. I thought Don was right about that. I really do. I thought he was really right. And I told him that. It's funny, the Sochi Olympics were in 2014, and I believe Don's birthday happened when he was over there. And I had breakfast with him one day, Jimmy. It was just the two of us sitting together, and he said, "I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be having my 80th birthday in
Sochi."
Sochi. Never thought. And I think he said it was his 80th. It might have been a little bit before that, but I'll never forget him telling me that. We had breakfast together. It was just the two of us. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast with him. He's great.
All right. Any more questions? All right, one more. Chris Blue Shirts. Hey, guys, ESPN mentioned this last night in their telecast. Did you know that Wayne, Mario, and Mess do not have an overtime playoff goal? I find that odd. I didn't know. Apparently you did, Pierre.
I think Gordie Howe didn't have one either.
Wow.
So, I heard that. I don't know how Gordie Howe came into it, but I had heard that as well years ago. So I know one thing. There's a guy that plays for Tampa. For Florida. He's got a boatload of them.
Carter Verhaeghe?
Yeah.
He's Pierre, I was just going to bring that up. So I saw the stat last night. He's now 4th ever in playoff overtime goals.
It's unbelievable.
I mean,
how about the play he made last night, though, Jimmy? Jimmy, that was a really good play against an elite goalie. Like the patience that do that on your backhand, and that was we were just talking about Don Cherry. Don Cherry, for all you kids out there, well, I'm not gonna plagiarize from you. This is from Don Cherry. For all you kids out there, watch Carter Verhaeghe's finish. He doesn't put it to the middle part of the net. He puts it to the upper part of the net. That was a heck of a play. Really,
he's something, man. He is something. He is Mr. Clutch. They had Mr. October in baseball. He's like the Mr. October or Mr. Spring, whatever you want to call him in hockey. That's Carter Verhaeghe. All right, listen, great stuff. We appreciate all your questions. Really good questions as always. Great points. Very salient points that's going on right now with the playoffs and other hockey topics. We appreciate it. Thanks to our production staff up in Montreal. Thanks to you, Pierre. I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Enjoy the playoffs tonight, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.